Well, the new design for King Kong is out, and surprise, surprise, it looks like King Kong. I know you can't really see it clearly where it is now, so I'll put it up here so you can get a closer look. Now, this picture also comes with an interview from the director Jordan Vogt-Roberts. I think that's how you pronounce Vought. If it's not, I'm sorry. And it gave some interesting insights into how they're going to portray Kong, and more specifically, what went into this design. Now, I think it's no surprise that this version of King Kong looks an awful lot like other versions of King Kong, because King Kong always looks like King Kong. 1933 onward, he's always looked the same. He's always simian. It's just a matter of whether you want him to look more humanoid or more anthropoid. I think the biggest change ever made was when Toho got their hands on him and they redesigned the face to have the flatter mouth that most Asian primates have. With this version of Kong, Robert said they're trying to stick close to the original design while still putting a unique modern spin on it. And yeah, it does look pretty close. Specifically, if you look at the close-up image again, he has brown fur instead of the traditional black or very, very dark gray, and the head especially looks an awful lot like the original Kong. Now, the interview, which I'll link you to below, gives some very interesting insights that I'd like to briefly touch upon. One of them is that there are some marked similarities between the designing of Kong and the designing of the legendary Godzilla, which you'll remember this Kong will be meeting at some point, but also a very distinct difference that's almost the exact inverse of what went into designing that Godzilla. The interview emphasizes quite a bit that this version of Kong is meant to be seen as godlike, similar to what the legendary Godzilla was meant to be seen as. They're really pushing this idea that the kaiju are gods, albeit gods in a Lovecraftian sense rather than a Christian or even Greek or Egyptian sense. So pretty similar mindsets at first, but there's a point where they diverge and go in completely opposite directions. In Godzilla: The Art of Destruction, they say that Godzilla was designed naturalistically. This is a creature that would be produced by nature, even though they are sticking to the original elements that comprise Godzilla. Upright stance, dragging the tail, 3 rows of dorsal fins, so on and so forth. But with Kong, they're apparently going in a more mythic direction. And the reason for this ties into why they set the movie in the 70s specifically, as opposed to the 30s or even the modern day. Because the 70s was a time when people were obsessed with monsters. Anthropoid monsters specifically. Because in the late 60s, right before the 70s came along, the most famous Sasquatch sighting of all time took place. You know the one, of course. It's the one that resulted in the Patterson-Gimlin film, of which a still is shown here. Most infamous Bigfoot sighting of all time. We can debate whether it was real or fake another day. Point is, it sparked a craze. The 70s was the age of a bizarre subgenre of film called Sasquatchploitation, many of which actually ripped off King Kong. The original, not this one. You know what I mean. And of course, this obsession with Sasquatch and Sasquatch-type creatures led to obsessions with creatures like the Loch Ness Monster, Mokele Mbembe, and all sorts of other supposedly real-life monsters. They were really big in the 70s, trust me. So, King Kong, being set in the 70s, and having a more upright Sasquatch appearance, is a very deliberate move. And just like that, I'm very interested to see what they do with it. But is it a good design? Well, like I said, King Kong looks like King Kong. You really can't go wrong with it. Unlike Godzilla, who's gone through a number of variations on the same basic shape, Kong has always pretty much looked the same. So, yes, it is a good design. Now we just wait to see what they do with it.